The first time I saw my own soul hanging on a gallery wall with another woman's name beneath it, I didn't cry. I froze. The opening night buzz of the Echoes of Solitude exhibition faded to a silent, ringing hum in my ears. There it was, my painting, not inspired by mine, not reminiscent of mine. Mine, the one I'd titled Whisper of Leaving. Only now it was called Quietus, and it was signed by my best friend, Lena. We shared everything for 10 years. A cramped studio apartment. Our dreams of making it in the art world, tubes of cadmium red and phthalo blue. We were opposites, where my work was dark, emotional, layered and thick, grieving impasto. Lena's was bright, abstract, all clean lines and optimistic color fields. Or so I thought. My mother's slow, terrible death from early onset Alzheimer's 2 years ago hollowed me out. The only way I could breathe was to paint the collapse, the fading light in her eyes, the dissolving maps of memory, the furniture of self being slowly carted away. Lena was my anchor. She brought me soup, held me when I shook, and sat silently on the floor of my studio as I exorcised my grief onto canvas after canvas. Whisper of Leaving was the final one, the last box packed, the empty room. I'd finished it 6 months ago, then covered it in a sheet, too raw to look at. Stunning, isn't it? Lena's voice was at my shoulder, smooth as gallery varnish. She was holding a flute of champagne, her smile radiant under the track lighting. It just poured out of me this past year. A breakthrough. I turned to look at her. I searched the face I knew better than my own, the faint scar on her chin from a childhood fall, the specific gold of her irises. I was looking for a sign, a twitch, a ghost of guilt. There was nothing, only the serene confidence of the acclaimed. It looks familiar. I managed my voice of strangers. She laughed, a light, tinkling sound. Oh, I know. I told you my new direction was leaning into deeper emotion. You must have seen the sketches around the studio. I had seen no sketches. I had only seen her on her laptop, typing furiously, claiming she was writing artist statements. I felt the floor tilt. The truths rearranged themselves with a sickening click. The long hours she'd spent helping me in my studio. The way she'd insisted on photographing my process for my archives. The comforting words that now sounded like subtle probes. What does that gray symbolize? Is that empty chair about finality? I made it to the bathroom and vomited. I splashed water on my face, staring at my pallid reflection. A fool. A grieving, trusting fool. She hadn't just stolen a painting. She had mined my deepest sorrow, my most private language of loss, and packaged it as her own artistic evolution. The reviews in the local paper the next day confirmed it. They called her brave, startlingly intimate, a voice for unspoken grief. They called my life's darkest hour her breakthrough. The rage, when it came, was a silent, glacier-cold flood. It didn't make me scream. It made me still. She hadn't just betrayed my friendship. She had performed an identity theft of the spirit. And she had done it from a place of such intimate knowledge. It was a violation that made my skin crawl. I went to the studio we still technically shared. Her side was pristine, ready for press interviews. My side was a chaotic monument to authentic pain. I didn't touch the covered Whisper of Leaving. Instead, I went to a locked flat file. Inside were not paintings, but notebooks, dozens of them. Every diary entry, every scribbled concept, every dated, desperate sketch from the 2-year descent of my mother's illness. A step-by-step cartography of my heartbreak, the raw, ugly, unartistic truth behind the beautiful, stolen lie on the gallery wall. Lena had the finished product, but I had the provenance of the pain. She had the masterpiece, but I had every single failed study, every tear-stained journal page, every photographic timestamp of the work in progress on my phone, Images that had, I now remembered, often included her in the background, watching. She wanted to be the voice for unspoken grief. I would give her grief. I would give her a symphony of it, but not the grief she'd stolen from me. The grief of watching a meticulously constructed lie unravel in public. The grief of being exposed as the emotional parasite she was. I took a deep breath, the cold inside me solidifying into a plan. I would not accuse her. I would not rage. I would create a new collection, the most powerful, most devastating work of my life. And I would invite her to the opening. She painted herself as the poet of goodbyes. So I will teach her the true meaning of farewell. I will build an exhibition so honest, so brutally specific in its detail, that standing next to it, her stolen masterpiece, will look exactly like what it is, a cheap, empty forgery. Her betrayal was my masterpiece. My revenge will be hers. Revenge for an artist isn't a splash of red on a canvas. It's the gradual, deliberate layering of a glaze that changes everything beneath it. I didn't confront Lena. I congratulated her with a text that tasted like ash. So proud of you. The recognition is everything you deserve. I let her have her triumph. I needed her to feel secure, elevated, and most of all, watched. My new collection needed a title. I called it The Provenance of Absence. It wouldn't be about my mother's death. It would be about the theft of it. Each piece would be a forensic study of a specific, stolen emotion. While Lena gave interviews about her abstract journey into loss, I descended into the granular. I painted the exact pattern of the medical gown my mother wore, rendered in painstaking detail, but fraying at the edges into nothing. I created a large-scale triptych of empty pill bottles, each label a tiny, precise replica of the real ones, arranged in the chronological order of her decline. My true weapon was multimedia. In a locked digital vault, I had the evidence, the time-stamped photos of Whisper of Leaving in progress on my easel, with dates that predated Lena's claimed creative period by a year. In the background of several shots, Lena's blurred figure sat on my studio couch, a ghostly witness to the crime. I also had voice memos, my raw, weeping recordings from the studio describing the painting's meaning as I worked. Today, I tried to capture the silence in the house after the hospice bed was taken away. My haunted voice said on a file dated 18 months prior. I began to share, not accusations, but process. On a private, professional website for my new collection, I posted studies. A hyper-realistic drawing of my mother's favorite teacup with a caption explaining its personal significance. A scan page from my journal from the week she forgot my name. The ink smudged. I was building the unassailable, heartbreaking bibliography for the book Lena had plagiarized. Lena's success, built on quicksand, began to show hairline fractures. An astute critic, in a follow-up piece, noted a disquieting specificity in her acclaimed painting that seemed at odds with her other, more abstract work. He called it an isolated moment of startling, almost intrusive realism. The seed was planted. Then I invited her to my studio. I needed her to see the machinery of her own downfall taking shape. She arrived, flushed with confidence, wearing the uniform of the newly anointed artist. "I'm so glad you're creating again, Claire," she said, her voice dripping with benevolent pity. "I'm inspired," I said simply, gesturing to the towering, detailed canvas of the empty chair from my mother's room. "I'm finally not painting about grief. I'm painting its DNA sequence." Her smile faltered for a microsecond as she took in the clinical detail, the intimacy that made her generalized solitude look like a greeting card. She walked around, her confidence visibly leaking as she faced the undeniable weight of authentic, documented sorrow. "It's very literal," she finally said, the critic's word now a weapon in her mouth. "It's honest, I corrected, my voice gentle. It's the difference between writing a poem about a shipwreck and presenting the ship's splintered logbook. A week later, the final piece of my plan fell into place. I was contacted by a respected curator from a major museum's modern grief narrative wing. She had seen my online studies. There's an authenticity here we rarely see. She wrote, "We have a slot in our upcoming exhibition documenting the intangible. Would you be interested in presenting a new site-specific piece?" I said, yes. I knew the exhibition. It was prestigious, academic, and demanded rigorous proof of concept. It was the perfect, impartial courtroom. I began the site-specific work. It was an installation called The Archive of a Stolen Year. In a small, white room, I would display my journal pages under glass. On the walls, my hyper-realistic paintings of objects. In the center, on a monitor, a silent, slow slideshow of the time-stamped progress photos of Whisper of Leaving from first charcoal sketch to final stroke. No narration, no names, just the brutal, chronological fact of its creation in my hands, in my space, over a year of my life. I sent the curator my documentation file to satisfy the exhibition's provenance requirement. I included everything except the photos with Lena in them. Those I kept in reserve. The invitation to my opening at the museum was printed on heavy cream stock. I hand-delivered one to Lena's new, sleek downtown loft. She read it, her face a masterpiece of forced pleasure. A museum. Claire, that's fantastic. Thank you, I said. It's for a show about documentation and honesty. I couldn't think of a more fitting theme. I held her gaze. You'll come, won't you? I need you there. After all, you were there for the entire inspiration. She stole the final chapter of my grief and called it her own prologue. Now, I am building a museum around the entire first draft. She will stand in that white room, surrounded by the fossil record of my pain, and watch as every visitor understands, without me saying a word, that the masterpiece she's famous for is just a single plagiarized page from a book I wrote in blood. The museum opening for documenting the intangible was not a celebration. It was a tribunal. The air in the white gallery was hushed, reverent, charged with the uncomfortable energy of raw truth. My installation, The Archive of a Stolen Year, stood as a silent witness. Guests moved slowly, first drawn to the large, hauntingly precise paintings of my mother's belongings, then to the journal pages under glass, their smudged ink and frantic script a visceral punch. Finally, they gathered before the central monitor, watching the silent, chronological slideshow of Whisper of Leaving being born on my easel over my year of grief. The dates on the photos were impossible to ignore. Lena arrived late, a strategy to make an entrance, but the room's energy had already been claimed. She stood at the periphery, her smile brittle as she watched people not just look, but study, their faces shifting from appreciation to dawning comprehension. I saw the exact moment she saw the monitor, her champagne flute dipped, liquid sloshing over her knuckles. She saw her own masterpiece being painted in my studio in photos dated a full year before her supposed breakthrough. The color drained from her face, leaving her looking like a mannequin in her own expensive clothes. The curator, a severe woman with a razor-sharp mind, began her remarks. She spoke about the ethics of sourced emotion and the critical importance of provenance in art that deals with trauma. She did not say Lena's name. She didn't need to. Every pair of eyes in the room flicked from the screen to Lena, then to my stoic, documented evidence. The verdict was being rendered not by a judge, but by a jury of her peers. Then a noted critic, the one who had written the disquieting specificity review, approached me, his voice low. The chronology is unequivocal, Ms. Reed. The journal entry from March, describing the composition of the empty chair piece, is particularly damning when viewed alongside the final work currently hanging at the Modern Gallery. He meant Lena's show. His use of damning was not casual. I simply nodded. I believe art should speak for itself. All I've done is provide the footnotes. That was the spark. The critic moved through the crowd, and the whispers intensified. I saw collectors who had bought Lena's newer works look stricken. I saw gallerists calculating lost value. Lena was trapped in a shrinking circle of silence. Her attempted escape was a disaster. She approached the curator. Her voice strained his audible to those nearby. This is a targeted character assassination. Those dates can be faked. The curator looked at her over her glasses, her gaze cold. The digital metadata has been verified by our archivists, Ms. Thorne. The inquiry is one of artistic integrity, not character. The formal public switch from Lena to Ms. Thorne was a gavel strike. I finally walked toward Lena. The crowd parted. We faced each other in the center of the room, the slideshow of my work glowing on her cheek. "You were my best friend," I said, my voice carrying in the quiet. "You didn't just steal a painting. You held my hand while I bled, and then you bottled my blood and sold it as your own perfume." There was no clever retort. The facade crumbled into sheer, panicked exposure. "You'll never work in this city again," she spat, a last desperate threat. "I don't need this city," I replied, my voice terribly calm. "I have my work back. And you have a signature that now means forgery." I turned my back on her. The conversation in the room resumed, but it was about me now, about the powerful authenticity of the archive, the bravery of the documentation. Lena slipped out, unseen by most. Her departure was her final masterpiece, an absence. The fallout was swift and permanent. The gallery showing Echoes of Solitude quietly closed the exhibition early. The sold paintings, including Quietus, were returned amid legal threats. The story became a quiet legend in the art world, a cautionary tale about stolen grief. Lena's name didn't disappear. It became synonymous with a specific kind of ethical rot. She moved to another coast, her style shifting once again, but her career carried the permanent stain. As for me, I sold every piece in The Provenance of Absence, not as pretty sorrow, but as documented truth. The money was secondary. The freedom was everything. I rented a new studio north of the city with a wall of windows facing the woods. The first canvas I stretched, there was blank for a long time. Then, one morning, I mixed a color I hadn't used in years, a warm, foolish, hopeful yellow. It wasn't about endings. It was about a hesitant, fragile beginning. She wanted the masterpiece without the mess, the acclaim without the agony. So I gave her the full inventory of my suffering, itemized and authenticated. In the end, she wasn't convicted in a court of law, but in the court of irrelevance. My revenge was not her humiliation, but her erasure. And in the quiet space that was left, I finally heard my own voice again, clear and my own.